Well, hello and welcome to Political Voice. I'm Moses Humphrey. Well, it was a bloody weekend in the Middle East, and escalating tensions look far from easing in the coming days. It was just about Saturday's surprise. It was not just about Saturday's surprise attack on Israel by Palestinian militant group Hamas. There was also an earthquake in Afghanistan in which no fewer than 2,000 persons have died. Well, videos and images on social media show mosques and residential buildings flattened in Gaza as the death toll in the territory rose to at least 436 people on Monday. The Israel Defense Force (IDF) said Monday's attack Monday it attacked 500 Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad targets overnight. Now, the Palestinian Interior Minister said most of the targets were towers, residential buildings, civil and service facilities, and many mosques. But in Afghanistan, rescuers have been desperately digging through rubble with their bare hands and shovels to try and pull up victims from the wreckage of a powerful earthquake that hit at least 2,000 people. Now, the 6.3 magnitude earthquake hit a densely populated area near Herat, Afghanistan, flattening entire villages and trapping both the living and dead under the rubble. Now, hundreds of people are understood to still be trapped, more than 1,000 injured, and around 1,300 homes destroyed. A Taliban government spokesman on Sunday provided a toll that, if confirmed, would make it one of the deadliest earthquakes to strike the country in 2 decades. An earthquake that hit eastern Afghanistan in June 2022, striking a rugged mountainous region, wiped out stones and mud brick homes, and killed at least 1,000 people. Well, our thoughts and prayers are with the departed, although much of these deaths in both scenarios only go to justify the thinking that a safe and powerful world is possible if we choose to learn from the errors of history. Oh well. But for our main focus of conversation today, let's bring it home now to Nigeria. The federal government has called for de-escalation of hostilities in the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Now, a statement issued by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, in Abuja on Sunday, said it was deeply concerned about the outbreak of hostilities between Israel and Hamas. Ambassador Tuga said that the cycle of violence and retaliation that the current escalation has assumed only served to perpetuate an unending cycle of pain and suffering for the civilian population. Well, it consequently called for ceasefire in the interest of vulnerable civilians. Now, he called on both sides to exercise restraints, prioritize the safety of civilians, and give room for humanitarian considerations. I have my guest in the studio, and together we'll make sense of it all. I have with me in the studio, he's my namesake, by the way, Moses. But he's Moses Adebayo. He's a public affairs commentator and an educationist. Good to have you with us in the studio.
Oh, thank you, and I greet as many listening and watching right now. Just to make an incursion into the bloody weekend as you labeled it. You begin to imagine, will there ever be anything called a lasting peace in the Middle East? And it's well known that whatever starts in the Middle East does not stay there. There's a way it affects the entire world. The entire world has, over since Saturday, it's been a case of taking sides. Oh, Hamas is wrong, Israel is right, Hamas is wrong. And it goes on.
We'll delve into the conversations. We'll delve into that in the course of the program.
Right.
But now, let's look at it now. There was a surprise attack. Now, Hamas more or less a militant group. Would you say that attack on Israelis around the Gaza Strip was as a result of Palestinian and Hamas being pushed to the wall?
Well, if you go by the report from Benjamin Netanyahu, that's the current
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, he labeled it as an enforced and a cruel, what do you call now? They came around, as in, imagine 700 people as a Saudi died, and that included many women and children. They attacked them suddenly. And who said the during the weekend that this is like 9/11 and the Kenya bomb, embassy bomb attack rolled into one? They were not expecting this. Nothing was at stake. Before now, we've not had any, because perpetrator place is always hot. But we didn't hear of anything that transpired before the sudden attack. So it's a case of you've done your own first. And I know Israel has a kind of policy. If you kill one Israeli, according to them, they will kill 10 of your own side too before they even listen to you at all. And I think what is going on right now will not stop suddenly. Israel will always pay back. If you ever heard of the 6-Day War in 1967, when they were observing Sabbath, and they were so vulnerable at that point, because when they go there to worship their God, they leave everything behind. Only for 3-4 Arab countries that surround Israel, Syria, Egypt, and Jordan, they attacked them. Israel, in no time, responded, and in 6 days, they subdued the 3 countries against them. What has happened recently is not entirely new. The forever contention is about the land that Israel seized during. And I know one of the principles of war, as in one of the action of war, we'll call it that way, is a case where if Mr. A overpowers Mr. B and gets everything that belongs to Mr. B by virtue of overpowering, whatever transpires afterward, Mr. A is now the real owner, because in war, all is fair and square. Israel took over the Gaza Strip in the 60s, especially during the 6-Day War. Then they obtained into 1973, and that kind of war happened. I think that was Yom Kippur War thereabout. They've seized this land. You don't know, you don't go to them telling them they should return there as in it's your land. And it was war. There was a confrontation, and we subdued you. And ever since, that has been the bone of contention, because Palestine, they have their own argument as well. Oh, their lands have been seized. I remember Clinton proposing to Yitzhak Rabin and Nasser Arafat then in 1995 that they should have a 2-state arrangement whereby they will live peaceably. But till now, that peace still eludes the world. It's still a mirage. It's still more of will it happen than is it happening? Because what just happened was unprovoked as far as Israel is concerned. But I don't want to sit here and pass verdict, because neither of the states, neither of them is a saint. Israel has got his own baggage too. But Palestinians, I think it's about time they realize that if they will keep doing this, then they will always suffer for it.
All right, so yes, it's good you pointed out to the fact that Israel has been occupying, the Gaza Strip, and the politics that surrounded that area, Israel and Palestine being constantly at each other's throats. This is it's an age-long conflict, really.
True.
But in the last 56 years or thereabouts, Israel has been, they've had their presence in that area. They have occupied, they have, and it hasn't gone without its own. Israel, they've not held back in dealing with Palestinians in that area. They've really not held anything back. They've dealt, they've dealt with the hammer hand.
Yep, true.
So now seeing Hamas coming up to more or less carry out what it did, what some will call a protest to the fact that, look, we are tired and we want to hit you back. Should we really blame them for hitting back?
Two wrongs will never make it right.
Okay.
Over time, let me go back to the Clinton era when he was America's president. He had this meeting with them at Camp David, somewhere, a resort center for American presidents. And they came around, they signed many treaties going forward that, okay, we should live in peace. The accord went well for a while, but sometimes, some emotions don't heal. They don't. If somebody has really done something ill to you, there is a way that the human nature will say, "But I have to take my revenge." I think that's what I've been in this cat and mouse game over the decades. Israel maintains that we fought, as in there was war, and we emerged as winners, if I have to put it that way. Now, if at all we want to make use of that land we seized, it's going to be on our terms. And that Palestine and the organization, they will never hear of that. And they are ably backed by their neighbors, the Irans, the Iraqs, Egypt. No, Egypt over time has this posture of being a bit neutral for whatever reasons they. And one war too many in our time. Ukraine, Russia is still on. The Sudanese conflict is still on. Internal civil war. Now Israel versus Hamas. Hamas, have they got anything right to offer the Palestinians? I don't think so. Because there are times they have even turned the guns against their own people. So what they did was totally unnecessary, unwarranted, unprovoked. And Israel has the right of retaliation. They have the right of retaliation. That's exactly what they are going to do.
All right, so yes. So talking about Israel's right to retaliation now, we've seen a case where Israel has said, look, Hamas has basically taken over Gaza. That's the analysis. Hamas have taken over Gaza, so they are bombarding Gaza. Let's not forget that we have civilians staying there as well. Gaza is majorly a civilian occupation.
Very true.
In bombarding Gaza, so far, Israel hasn't held anything back. They've bombarded homes, and they've the strikes, the airstrikes that they've shot out has affected homes, have killed people too. But let's look at the position of the UN in all of this. Yesterday, there was a meeting. UN Security Council went into a meeting yesterday. Now, in as much as it was a closed-door session, we don't know exactly what transpired, at least as at the time of preparing for this show. We were not privy to the information of what transpired inside the meeting. But from what we heard from representatives that came out to speak to pressmen, they were giving their full support to Israel to go ahead. Now, let's not forget, in war, when you attack civilians, women and children, it is at what point would you say you have committed war crimes?
It doesn't have to get to any point at all. Once it's established that you killed civilians, vulnerable civilians, defenseless civilians, then you've committed an atrocity as far as
But that's what Israel has done now.
No. Yes. Let me say this again. Israel was, as in from reports I've heard, if at all you wanted to attack, why not attack the military base of Israel? When Hamas went out there on Saturday to kill 700 defenseless people,
okay,
they've only triggered war on themselves. I don't expect countries like the US, France, and UK and the like not support Israel. They will always be allies to Israel. The Nigerian angle, as you've asked before now, yes, it will only augur well if we take sides with neither of them. We can as well remain
We'll
neutral.
come back to Nigerian angle. We'll come back to
the UN Security Council, you know that forever it's going to be lopsided. 5 permanent members, 10 non-permanent members, but the 5 permanent members have their votes very strong. And whenever the American state takes any post or any step, you can expect that Russia will go the other way. And without the 5 coming together to agree on a thing, then there will not be any resolution.
All right, now, in light of what you have just said, we can be sure Russia will go the other way. Now, before we bring Russia into it now, if US has said it will send warships,
You can trust them for that.
to Israel in support, in show of support. And they are doing that as a way of saying, look, if enemies of Israel want to take advantage of this, just know that, look, we are here and we will, add ammunition to this. But does Israel really need support from America? Because Israel is more than capable.
When you have an overwhelming sense, how to put it now, you have a state where you are surrounded literally by 6 enemy states, then you can't go it alone all the time. There has not
But
been
they
any
are
war.
more than capable.
Israel?
Yes.
If you think Israel, maybe you're talking about Mossad, the intelligence body. But as a whole, on their own, they can't take on the sixth nation because, see, there is this Iranian angle to it. The American states, they will make incursion more because they feel there is a kind of a hand of Jacob, the hand of Esau, the voice of Jacob. They can sense. Don't forget that once a one-time president of Iran claimed that Israel should be wiped out of existence. That it should be on record that they once there were never anymore because it was going to unleash their nuclear weapon on Israel. But of course, it was bluff. He couldn't have done that. And if he had tried it, Israel would have answered him. But when it comes to war like this, really, you don't go to war alone. I think I know a bit of strategy of war. You need your allies. Even if you are more than capable to take on whoever has confronted you, you will still need your allies because war is costly. If you spend all you've got on war, what happens during peacetime? So you don't want to go it alone. As much as they are capable to face, during the 6-day war, they almost did it single-handedly, but they still had the American support briefly. They were also brief from June 10 to 15 in 1967. Afterwards, all their confrontation, whether with Fatah, with Hamas, with Fatah, and all these terrorist groups, because that's how they label them, they don't go it alone. So it's incumbent on the American state to always support Israel for whatever. Some have given it spiritual connotations. Some have said it's about prophecy being fulfilled. Although in the international space, we don't believe in such. You go by the facts on ground, things on ground. So the American state is always duty-bound to support Israel, and they will support themselves around.
All right, now with what we've heard, Israel being given the liberty to do whatever is necessary to retaliate, don't you think that's a little extreme? Doing whatever. In doing whatever, wouldn't we commit war crimes?
Whatever was triggered when 700 women and children were killed, whatever was triggered.
But you just said 2 wrongs don't make it right.
Yes, 2 wrongs will never make it right. But you can't rule out the place of consequences. Oh, I hear every time you've been forgiven. But that you've been forgiven does not mean you will not face the judicial consequence of your action. What they did was blatantly wrong. I mean, Hamas. And Israel, at a point, I felt, okay, I don't think it's have been in the news for some time now. As in Israel, Hamas, we don't. Suddenly, I just had on Saturday, what happened again? Is it Israel taking the first step? Only for me to know that they were actually
Hamas took the first, yes.
And provocation, as I've said, all is fair and square in war. It's a call to war. And they've answered them, and they will still answer them. You can rest assured that Israel will go the whole hog to get some things resolved.
All right. So as it stands, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared war on Hamas. The cabinet will sit and approve that today, and they will go into action. But as it is, there's still a struggle. There's still a struggle trying to capture or recapture Gaza, as it is. How do you see this play out?
Well, some things are just phantom. Some things are just dreams. As long as Israel occupy the Gaza Strip, I don't think any Arab nation, whether they come individually or corporately, they can't dislodge Israel there. Israel will only listen or talk to Hamas or Fatah, whichever group that choose to represent the Palestinians. They only talk to them on their terms.
All right. Now, also, just to get this out of the way, I'm laying the foundation for something here. In a show of support, we saw Hezbollah at the border between Lebanon, the Lebanon border, fire shots as well. All right. Now, but they were careful enough not to target any
civilian
yes,
population.
It was just just to show that, look, we are in support of Hamas, and the shots were also fired by Israeli forces. Also being careful, just to show that, look, if you do, we can retaliate. Now, we've also seen that. Now, you mentioned Iran at some point, and that just reminded me that there was an intelligence report that there could have been a meeting before this attack took place. There could have been a meeting that Iranian authorities were aware of the attack, meeting probably was held in Iran. If that be the case, should we expect this to now be between Israel and the Arab world? Already, they are calling on the Egyptians to join in this.
Egypt will most likely not join them. I want to go too deep with what you said, as in maybe it's a conflict between Israel and the Arab world. Not necessarily. Over time, the posture of Egypt.
You don't have the fear that it might result in that.
It may snowball
if it continues
into that.
like this.
But you can rest assured that countries like Egypt will not be part of it. I can because over time the posture they've adopted is that we want to be as neutral as can be. Look, the Arab world, the Middle East, they only regard countries like Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, African countries now when it's so convenient for them. So most times when they can't get anything from these countries I've mentioned, they tend to tell them, you are African, not Africans, not Middle Easterners. So Egypt has learned over time that we can't commit our resources to any of this Arab world. You mentioned Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a group in Iraq or Iran now. But what I know is this, for Hamas, they tend more to the Shiite aspect of Islam. You know, there are two major groups now, the Sunnis and the Shiite. So anything that a Shiite-leaning organization will do, you can rest assured that Iran, which is the #1 Shiite nation on earth, because most of the Muslims in Iran are Shiite. So Iran, there will always be an involvement of Iran, one way that once it has to do with Shiite Muslims. Let me just go a bit to what happened in Nigeria sometime. You remember El Zazaki? El Zaki is the head of the Shiite Muslims in Nigeria, near Africa. So he had the back, at a point he even made it blatantly clear that he is not reporting, he's not a subject of the Nigerian state, that he reports to Iran. Yes, he was that brazen in Kaduna until he was arrested. So what I'm saying is, in essence, that Iran will always ensure, once they know that you think the way they think, you have their religious views, you can expect support from them. And don't forget, all of these are interwoven. Iran made it clear once that they wanted Israel wiped out of existence. So anyone that would attack Israel in recent time, be rest assured that Iran will, if not openly, covertly will support. So I can tell that Iran, and not naive when it comes to this, Iran will have one or two roles they are playing right now. They see themselves as one nuclear giant. Although they keep telling the world that the nuclear program is for peace, is to generate light and the like. But who believes them?
Of course, if you want peace, you must prepare for war.
Fine. So maybe the peace they anticipate, they've got to go through this war tunnel. But it's unnecessary.
All right, now let's bring it home to Nigeria. The federal government of Nigeria is lending its voice to this, asking for peace, ceasefire, basically. How does this really affect Nigeria, knowing that we are a state that has both
Sunnis and Shiites, Muslims,
Shiites, and other religions as well?
True.
How does this affect us here in Nigeria?
Anyway, the world over the years, decades, have shrunk into a global village, so that at every point in time, there are always treaties. It could be bilateral, it could be multilateral, by virtue of the international organization you belong to. Nigeria can't stand neutral when it comes to issues like this. Don't forget our role in Africa. Even if we still flounder, we still fumble, not attaining our potentials yet, we are a voice to reckon with. If we take this moderate stance, I think it will help us. Neither of them has anything to offer Nigeria in that sense. But the Nigerian diplomatic community should ensure that they work hand in hand with those who want true peace. Now, I'm emphasizing that true peace, because we've had pseudo meetings over the years, and what has been the result? Absolutely nothing. So Nigeria's stance here should be as clear as can be. Unlike when we made a mess of what happened between what's currently going on between Ukraine and Russia. We hastily took side with Russia, with Ukraine against Russia, and it was not good enough. Nowadays, I want the Nigerian government to go back as far back as the 60s to borrow notes from Joseph Tito, the man that brought about the non-alignment movement then. There are some countries that joined with him when there was this Cold War between the superpowers then, the defunct USSR and America, United States of America. Both sides wanted allies from any part of the world, but some countries stood neutral. So I think Nigeria will do ourselves a great good if we ensure that we maintain a moderate stance. We are neither for Israel or for Hamas. Let them know our stance, and we make that unequivocally clear to the world. So for me, I expect that the Nigerian Diplomatic Committee, through our ambassador to the UN, and our foreign minister as well, they will let the world know that this is where we stand. Because, as I said before, with any country on earth, there is always this bilateral relationship. So our interest may one way or the other be hot there. That's why we must be concerned. Hence, we have made our stance known early enough, but we still continue to tell them that this is our position. We are neither for this or that. Not forgetting that on all sides, they've always been guilty. Israel will not be saintly. Hamas not saintly. So the two of them, since we deal with Israel on bilateral principle, we have transaction with them. Hamas not a state. They are non-state actors. But those that they back, the Palestinian organization, we have dealings with them one way or the other. Although they've not been recognized as a country officially by the United Nations. But that doesn't stop you from having, when you think of this West African Sahrawi group like that border between Morocco and Nigeria, there's a particular nation that was in the 80s trying to come up. But till now, they've not gained their status of being a whole nation. For Nigeria, please, we are to tell the world that what Israel is doing, we don't buy into it. What Hamas is doing, we don't buy into it. Stay neutral. Which is
what we've done so far.
So far.
Are there any other things that Nigeria can also do to show that, look, this is our stand, aside from just issuing statements?
We can always give them, our action speaks louder than words. If they meet at the United Nations in New York and we table our own, we let them know what we stand for, we make it very clear. Our diplomacy, our treaties with both countries, both Israel now and Palestine now, we ensure that nothing affects it. If there is any trading point between us, it should still continue. What I'm saying in essence is that our action must speak louder than our words. Whatever comes from Israel to Nigeria by way of trade or commerce should still be maintained. Whatever goes from Nigeria to Israel should still be maintained. To tell them that we are actually neutral. We cannot only capture we can't tell the world alone with our mouth, but we must do that with our action by virtue of all that we do in common by way of trade. So that will speak louder when we make it clear that we are not for you, and we are not for you, Israel, neither are we for you, Hamas. We are for peace.
But we cannot be for... Hamas has been proscribed as a terrorist organization anyway, so... But they seem to be getting support. There have been protests. There have been protests in the U.S., protesters calling on the U.S. to stop the movement of weapons to Israel. There have been protests in some parts of the world as well, as to Israel's occupation of Gaza.
Moses, let me put in here. If you consider the greatness of the United States, even when they try to adopt this posture of where they call themselves unique, that they are different from other nations, trace their history from the 18th century, 19th, even 20th century, including this current century. Jewish businessmen, Jewish scientists, they hold sway in the United States. As a matter of fact, if you must be elected as a president in the US, if you don't have the backing of the Jewish community, you are most likely going to lose. So they know how important Israel is to them. They know very much so. Hence, they will do all to support them. The protesters they are free now. It's a free world. That's why they call them the leaders of the free world. But then, that will not stop. Have you observed over the years, whether it's a Democrat as a Democratic candidate that become president or a Republican, there is one special place for Israel in each cabinet. Yes, Obama tried to play it down. He was not really a fan of what goes on in Israel, but he was duty bound because they will remind him, we are what we are today because these people largely contributed to our well-being today in terms of commerce, economics. Politically, they also hold sway because they influence things from a back door. Anyone that will ever rule America at from any party, you must factor in the Jewish community. That's why whatever affects Israel surely will affect America. As in inevitably will affect them. So America being there, fighting, and their citizens are saying, no, we should not go ahead. They know that the government will surely do something. They know. What maybe their fear is just that, can we put too many sticks in the fire at the same time? We are busy trying to support Ukraine. We know what happened when we were in quote disgrace out of Afghanistan because they were there for almost 20 years against Taliban, but eventually they left. So they've spent a lot. They've lost lives. They've lost assets. So now the people are coming. Look, we are not to join all wars, but you know America's bellicosity now. They don't have all the arsenals hidden for fun. Plus, they want to say, I told you earlier that war is expensive. Israel cannot go it alone. And America may have to support them with ammunition. So America will surely be involved in this. Surely. Going by what I said before, the Iranian angle to it. America and Iran, when they were to play the last World Cup, when the second match between US and Iran, you could feel the tension in Qatar. But of course, the players were sportsmanlike. At the end of the day, some of them won't exchange jerseys. That only tells you how they love each other. US, Iran, they don't have to do anything with each other at all. But all in all, the people have the right to protest in America, but then the government will have its way.
All right then. Well, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that it's going to be a long and difficult war. So we'll just keep our eyes on it and hope that things don't go to the extreme. But it's war. It's war. Actually, I don't want to say afraid, but I'm concerned that if this continues at the pace in which it is going, and it becomes an Arab-Israeli thing.
We keep saying this. Arab-Israeli.
I'm concerned. Okay. I'm concerned. If it gets to this, don't you think that we might see another world war?
What led to the 2 world wars in history? The First World War started with it started on a romantic note, and please take my sarcasm for that. It was between a prince from Austria and a lady, the princess to be from, is it Prussia now? They had a relationship, they were going out, but one family was not happy with the other one. I think the man got killed, and it escalated from there. It started very, very, harmless. What led to the First World War shouldn't have led to any kind of war in history, but it has come to stay. We have it in history. Second World War, what triggered? The Germans wanted reparations. They lost in the First World War, so they wanted many of their assets restored. And they found in Hitler someone that could drive their national ambition. That's why they backed him to the hilt. And that was one of the Second World War because of the issue of the First. The Third World War, well, till date, 77 years after, the United Nations, at least they've succeeded. I teach this in English a lot. What is the major achievement of the United Nations in 1945? The fact that they've succeeded in preventing a Third World War. Look, war to me has gone out. We can't deny that. When this world wars happened, many countries were still colonies. Many. Today, many of them are sovereign. So you can't just tell me that, oh, come and join me. No. Then they imposed on the countries like Nigeria, all the countries under their purview were dragged along. We had no choice. But now we are no longer colonies. We are sovereigns. So we can't. The Third World War, no, it won't. I don't think that way. Never.
All right. Okay. Anyway, let's wrap up on this one and go to the second topic that we have right here. Now, the Independent National Electoral Commission, Inec, has called on political parties and candidates to avoid provocative utterances and actions ahead of the off-cycle elections. The off-cycle polls are scheduled for November 11 in Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi states. In a statement issued on Sunday by Sam Olumekun, National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee, INEC, he said it is concerned about the spate of insecurity and violence, including clashes among supporters of political parties and candidates in the forthcoming elections. Now, the Commission also said the political parties were yet to fully submit the lists of their agents for the election. It said only 55% of the expected names have been submitted and urged parties to complete their submission before October 10. The portal will automatically shut down at 12 midnight on Tuesday, which is tomorrow, 10th October 2023. And we've been told that there will be no extension. All right. So now, let's start with the names now. 55% is what parties have submitted out of 186,180 polling. Yes, I think that's units. Yes, that's the units that will be covered. What do you make of the fact that parties have not submitted all the lists up until this time, and deadline is for tomorrow, 10th by midnight?
Is it any?
But they have said there will be no extensions.
Is it by any means surprising that after an election we have so much litigations? These are the reasons. so that even after election, we'll still have to battle with what transpired in the primaries when they were still aspirants. And when some of them became candidates. It's about time INEC did this for Nigeria and save us, because the dust raised by the two elections, general election for this year, is set to settle. So we can't afford to still go this way. If they are going to stick to their guns, October 10th, October 10th, if you deliberately enfranchise yourself by not voting or by registering, that's your cup of tea. Because if they keep extending this, we know the Nigerian, an average Nigerian, we can be given maybe 12 years for a program. 11 years and 10 months, Nigerians will still be lethargic. When it's been just 2 months, that's why you now see them rushing. It's just and it's an unfortunate one at that. Truth is this, INEC has every right, empowered by the law as the regulatory body for elections, to let them know that we are not extending. If only 55%, as they've said, are the ones that will participate in this election, so be it. But then, already we are preparing grounds for unnecessary litigation. No wonder our judges are worn out. I had one funny story on something last week. A judge of the Supreme Court that retired, how she was complaining that sometimes cases that involve, as in who is the owner of a particular head of goats, as in cow or cattle, some of these issues get to the Supreme Court. And I found that really ludicrous. How on earth will you take issues that border on maybe who owns this flock of sheep or flock of cattle? It goes on like that. So what I'm saying is that already the judiciary is overwhelmed. But with what is happening right now, with respect to the forthcoming elections, you can rest assured that the courts will get filled again and again with all manner of things that should have been resolved very quickly. Is there any wonder that we're even still going through, take the presidential election for example, some are still hot and they want to see to the end of the Supreme Court. And in a way, it will distract the incumbent government. It's will. So it's about time INEC, maybe they go back to the House of National Assembly, to ensure that, okay, part of our regulation is that after the election, you have no right to go to court again. Before we swear in the man or woman that has been elected, let everything be done, whether from the primary level of parties or when it became a candidate thing. Otherwise, we still keep going around this vicious cycle and it will get us nowhere. So it's about time INEC, for tomorrow I support that, they make it clear that we are not extending this. Whoever has registered, good. If you've not registered because you had enough time, then you have disenfranchised yourself, so you are not going to participate. So that's what I think they should take that stance.
All right. So, well, those are the agents. 100 and we hear that 189,180 polling unit agents have been uploaded to the designated INEC portal, and then there's a breakdown of it, the numbers per, a breakdown of the numbers. But another concern is insecurity.
Yep.
Insecurity in these areas, Kogi, Bayelsa, Imo. Do you see this affecting the elections?
If I'm going to be fair, and I choose to be fair all the time, when it comes to staggered elections like this, as in off-cycle elections like this, I think to an extent, INEC has done creditably well, at least to an extent. Charles Soludo in Anambra State was elected. Ekiti State Governor Yebanji was elected. Adeleke in Osun State, and on and on. Even before this current government, you trace back to the days of Jonathan. Whenever you have a staggered election, you can rest assured that security will be guaranteed. I mean,
for the elections.
Oh yes.
Well, INEC is saying, look, we are concerned, and as Nigerians, we are concerned as well.
They should be. We only go as in these are just peripheral. When the elections come, okay, let me use Osun as a good example, or even Anambra. Before the election of Charles Soludo, 2 years ago now, it was rumored that elections will not hold. You know what happens currently even in Southeast. Some tell you can't. We are not going to hold any elections here. But when the federal government deployed their might of 30,000 plus soldiers, policemen, and the like, the election went on.
All right. So, are you seeing a deployment in that capacity at this time?
That's one of the reasons.
Is that the only way to go?
That's one of the reasons most staggered elections, to an extent, reflect the true votes of people. To an extent, reflect, because consider the states I mentioned, Osun, Ekiti, the like. Even when the losers now litigate, there is always a reason for whoever INEC declared the winners always to come out. Adeleke is a good example. INEC declared the winner of the election in Osun State 2 years ago, and we can see that the then governor went to court, Oyetola, but eventually Adeleke had his way, and it was a plus for INEC. When it comes to elections like this, INEC will have the luxury of so many official personnel on ground. So it's hardly going to be difficult to organize it. Very difficult. They have their job well cut out. The security men, women that will be deployed there, they are only going to, it's like, the reason general elections, like what we had in February or even in March, will always be that the security apparatus they get overwhelmed. Don't forget, this time it's always about the whole nation. But here, we have just 3 states. Are they even coming up on the same day in November? I'm not so sure of the dates now.
November 11? I think November 11.
Even if they come up on November 11, the 3 elections in those states, Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi, it is still very certain that they will have enough manpower to deploy to those states, and there will be a level of sanity. So I don't think that security worries of INEC is anything to worry to go by. Maybe what's happening right now only indicates that these states, today they are killing in Imo State, tomorrow Bayelsa is not safe. They are only speaking with respect to what's ongoing. But can it stop the election from happening? I don't think so. I don't think so.
All right. Well, we do hope that when elections are done in those places, especially, well, I don't want to say especially Imo, but that's one that comes to mind. It will be the choice of the people.
True reflection.
The true reflection as the choice of the people.
As I've said.
Because it's one thing to hold elections, it's another thing for it to be a true reflection of what the people want.
And if you feel you have been cheated, I think there's always going to be a recourse to the law.
Go to court.
Well, I don't know. I see that particular sorry phrase. It has been bastardized, so I would never say such. Because when you hear people say go to court, they always that in a sarcastic manner. So don't go to court because you've lost. Go to court because you have a valid reason. Say, don't let anyone, I'm telling you, they call one governor the Supreme Court governor. So I hope what will happen in November will still further enrich our electoral jurisprudence. Because for every act we carry out, they become history. We can refer to elections that happened in the 80s, in the 90s, because they were documented. So whatever happens now, we document them for those coming behind. And Nigeria will still stand. For security, I can tell that enough manpower will be on ground to stand any form of thing that want to disrupt the election. All right.
So would that be your final thoughts on this?
Again, let me anticipate that the elections will be free, fair, and credible in those states.
Anticipate.
Yes. And I think I have reasons to, justifiably so. I said before, if you consider the elections carried out in some states, off-cycle elections, you can tell that INEC did something fairly okay, unlike when they had to vote across almost 30 states in Nigeria.
General elections.
They ran out of manpower. Hence, we have our skirmishes till date. Some people are still in court litigating. Is it right? But in this case, I think INEC should not overheat the polity by themselves. They shouldn't. They should go about their business. They have the role of conducting elections. Nobody wants Nigeria to go up in flames. So the security apparatus we have should take care of these 3 states. After, they are not even the most populated states in Nigeria. Maybe if it was going to be Lagos, Kano, and Rivers, by virtue of their size, not only by landmass but population, then maybe there will be a cause to worry. But with these states, I think they will get it done. So no qualms at all. No qualms at all.
All right, then thank you very much, Moses Adebayo, for staying with us on the program.
Always a pleasure.
All right, that's the size of the show today. We'll keep our eyes on things happening in the Middle East and keep you updated, of course. World news comes up shortly, where you'll hear the very latest happenings of events going on at the Middle East, in the Middle East. And also, we'll keep our eyes on the off-cycle elections taking place in Nigeria in the coming days. It's put for November 11, 2024. But then campaign will be starting very soon, and or has even started. And politicians will keep an eye on how they conduct themselves. Inec has also said that politicians should be wary of the words that they use so they don't heat up the polity. And we'll keep an eye on that and bring you the very latest of everything right here. On behalf of the team, I'm Moses Humphrey, wishing you a beautiful day. Bye for now.